If you've already bought a Nintendo Switch 2 console, this video isn't me trying to villainize you or anything. You don't have to do the same things as me. I completely understand the Nintendo Switch 2 is a very desirable console. If it wasn't, then this conversation wouldn't even be, happening in the first place. Certainly, this video wouldn't exist if I wasn't personally interested in the console. I'm someone with vested interest in this company. I make a lot of Nintendo videos on my channel. And so I feel like I have to come out and share my side of the story, as one might say, on why I still have not purchased a Nintendo Switch 2. The bottom line here is simply that I can't afford it right now, Certainly I can walk into a store right now and get myself a Switch 2 if I really wanted to, but then I'd have to think about other things like I have food to buy and bills to pay, and to me, Nintendo used to be the budget option when it comes to gaming. You have your PlayStations, your Xboxes, and then you also have this PC gaming, which is a lot trickier to set up. But then here's Nintendo, where it's typically a lot cheaper and not more powerful, but they offer a lot of variety when it comes to games. This is the console you get if you want gameplay over graphics, and also if you like Nintendo characters, of course. But literally, the Switch 2 is the most expensive console on the market right now, especially when you compare it to the base price of the PS5 and the Series X and the Steam Deck, which offers a similar thing of being portable. Of course, a lot of people will say that the issue with the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't even the price of the console. It's $450, but yeah, it's always going to be like a huge amount of money that you're going to spend when it comes to getting into the video game hobby anyway, and so a lot of people can compartmentalize this and justify it, and it's okay, and I completely understand that. But if they can sell their console for $340 over in Japan, then I think there is legitimately some wiggle room still available if they really wanted to sell this console at a cheaper price. I just don't know if positioning themselves in the same space as the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 price-wise when it doesn't offer the same capabilities when it comes to power, I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, Nintendo's biggest leverage is that it's portable, but this is not 2017 anymore. There are a lot of different options available for you if you really want to play handheld. And the most mainstream one is the Steam Deck. But it's the games. It's the games themselves that are expensive. $80 games. We only know of one game for the Nintendo Switch 2 that is $80, and that is Mario Kart World. But it doesn't give me a lot of hope for the future of gaming. And it kind of sets this precedent that future games, future AAA titles from other companies as well will be $80 because someone already did it. Someone broke the levee, and the dam is broken. So now we're in a generation where $80 games exist. And this goes for every console, really. It's never a good idea to buy a console at launch. For one, you're not going to have as many games playable on the console as when you give it some time later down the line. And I'm sure a lot of gamers have a lot of backlog to go through. For me personally, there isn't really much of a reason to get the Nintendo Switch 2 yet. Certainly not with Nintendo's current lineup for the next couple of months. So let's go through them one by one, the mainstream ones that we know that are coming. There's Mario Kart World, which looks a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, it's just a driving game. And yeah, it's open world, but I've watched a lot of reviews, from channels like Nintendo Life and GVG, and a lot of the consensus seems to be that despite Mario Kart having an open world, it's more of set dressing, if anything, and there isn't really much to do on the open world itself, which is fine. It's a driving game. What can you really expect? But at the same time, it's $80. It is legitimately the most expensive video game right now in the market from a mainstream video game publisher. So I don't know about that. Is there anything that Mario Kart World offers that other video games from other companies don't at $80? Certainly I wouldn't say that Mario Kart World has more things to do in it than a game like GTA 5, which is a AAA game that released more than 10 years ago, I think, at this point. And even compared to other Nintendo titles like Breath of the Wild, I just don't think that they're the same caliber of games, Even though they're both open world, one is a driving game, one is an immersive game where, there is an epic adventure for you to unfold. I just feel like they could have done more with a Mario Kart open world game that is $80. I don't know about that one. I'll wait for a sale. Secondhand, who knows? A lot of people justify this, that, you know, Mario Kart is something that you play for hundreds and hundreds of hours. And, you know, I only played Mario Kart 8 personally for like 10 hours on my Switch 1. So maybe I'm not the best person to judge for this. But to me, it seems like Mario Kart World is more comparable to live service games, you know, these games that you only play for a round or two and then you switch on to a different game or you do something else with your life. It has the trappings of a live service game, except it costs $80. But yeah, it's just, there are a lot of games that already occupy that space for me, like Marvel Rivals and, you know, sometimes games like Fortnite and other non-free games like Repo or Lethal Company. And these are the kind of games that you just play on occasion and not something that you just continuously grind. At least for me, that's not the kind of game that Mario Kart is to me. Next up, we've got Pokemon Legends ZA. I really enjoyed the previous Legends game, you know, Pokemon Legends Arceus. I really like the advancements that were made to the gameplay of Pokemon. I love that wild Pokemon can attack your player character and that you can throw your Pokeballs in the wild. This isn't present in Scarlet and Violet, which is really disappointing and is also one of the reasons why I didn't purchase that game. But yeah, Legends ZA, I don't know. It just feels like, you know, the whole game takes place within the city of Lumiose, and it already seems really small from watching the trailers and seeing the map which they've already released. It doesn't look like a very big place for you to run around in, but also that means that there isn't a lot of exploration in this game. One of the things that I liked about Legends Arceus is, you know, being able to see Pokemon in their habitat in a more naturalistic manner. You can see like Pokemon swimming in the water, or Pokemon that makes sense to be in the forest, be in a forest. And so just Pokemon Legends ZA being one singular biome, which is the city of Lumiose, it just doesn't excite me at all. And I don't see how this is good. I don't know. I know they have a lot of focus in the battle aspect in the trailers, but right now it just seems a little bland to me. So again, I'll be waiting for reviews when the game is out, and honestly, even the graphics are kind of I really liked Arceus, even though it's not perfect in terms of visual fidelity, but you can see that they're going for an art style, and it's pretty disappointing to me that, you know, Legends ZA just went away with it and went for something that's basically Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which is this weird anime fused with cartoon sort of look that kind of looks like Detective Pikachu. It's uncanny, it's pretty ugly, but this is a nitpick, of course. And also, you know, this is a cross-gen game. Even if this game turns out to be good, this is something you can play on the original Switch, which I imagine most of you probably have if you're into my videos. Next up, we've got Donkey Kong Bonanza. This game kind of looks interesting, but I'm not personally the type of person who likes 3D platformers and platformers in general. I've personally never been that interested in the Donkey Kong franchise to begin with, and I don't really think that Donkey Kong as a franchise is the sort of game that's like a system seller, like compared to Mario and Zelda anyway. The fact that Donkey Kong Bonanza is priced less than Mario Kart World feels to me like Nintendo feels the same way about this franchise, you know? But yeah, basically there's just nothing that excites me about Nintendo's current slate at the moment. I'm waiting to see what Pokemon has in store, you know, after Legends ZA. I want to see what Pokemon has for Gen 10, especially after watching the Xbox Live Showcase where Game Freak actually made an appearance and they announced, you know, a new IP that is, I don't know, it looks like it's Xbox exclusive at the moment, but oh my gosh, look at this. That's insane. Look at the budget they have for this game. I wish that Pokemon had this level of artistry. The funny thing about this trailer is that it also had frame rate issues, so you know this is definitely a Game Freak title. It's kind of embarrassing for them, honestly. Like, what the hell? You still haven't, even on a more powerful console, you know, Game Freak still has their issues. But, you know, in terms of like just the artistry of it, the graphical fidelity, wow, beautiful. And I wish that they would give this budget to the next Pokemon title. I kind of doubt they will, because, you know, Pokemon as a franchise is pretty anime focused, but I think there are ways to make anime look good, like, you know, Breath of the Wild or Xenoblade, you know, as the most, the highest grossing media franchise or whatever, I think that they can afford to do this. Please, Game Freak, come on. Looking forward to that, and if it's good, then maybe I'll buy a Switch 2. I'm also waiting to see what the next Animal Crossing will look like. I hope that it isn't set in an island again this time. I'm just sick of like island-based games. I don't know. I want to see what the new 3D Zelda might look like. Are we still going to be playing within the Breath of the Wild universe? And if we are, please, let's get out of Hyrule for a sec. Come on, we can explore other sections of the world. Or maybe it's a completely new universe, a completely new Zelda and Link. We'll see about that. But yeah, I don't think that we'll see the next Zelda for a good while. And if you're looking for the next 3D Mario game, we already have that. It's Donkey Kong Bonanza. Deal with it. But yeah, all the experiences I want from Nintendo are still on the Nintendo Switch 1. I will say, I really want to play Cyberpunk 2077 on the Switch 2, just because I want to play that game on the VED. I've played it before. I absolutely love the game. But yeah, I haven't played the DLC yet, and I'm looking forward to one day be able to play it on handheld, just because it's my preferred way to play. For me, like sitting on the desk is more like, let's work. This is work time. And I'd rather play on a couch or play in bed. But that's just me. Depends on the kind of game, really. If it's an FPS, then certainly I would prefer to be on the desk. But at the same time, I could just get a Steam Deck for that. You know, the Steam Deck is not as powerful as the Switch 2, of course. The Switch 2 is a new generation of hardware. But the difference here is that one of the benefits of the Steam Deck is that you can tinker around with the settings as much as you want, because the Steam Deck is basically a handheld PC. So you can trade as much graphical fidelity as you want to some extent for more performance. And one of the things that I wish CD Projekt Red aimed for was 60 FPS on the Switch 2 for Cyberpunk. But you know, 40 FPS, maybe it looks good, maybe it looks better in real life, and I want to see it for myself. So in the interim, here are my suggestions for people who want a Switch 2 but can't afford it, like me. Number 1. A Nintendo 3DS. You can get them for real cheap these days. I think I got my console for about $100, and yeah, secondhand, and you gain access to a lot of games. You get both the 3DS and the DS library, and if you're willing to go off the beaten path a little bit, as one might say, then you will have access to even more games. Here's me playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 for the PlayStation 1 on the Nintendo 3DS. And you know, it's a very novel console as well, and has features that the Nintendo Switch 2 doesn't offer. Like sometimes I still take my 3DS with me on walks, and I still get street passes sometimes. They're very rare, but it still happens. And yeah, it's always such a magical feeling meeting another person with a 3DS, maybe not physically, but you know, knowing that you were in proximity of each other. Like, Nintendo fan, I saw you, I spotted you. And it's just such a lovely feature, and it's so unfortunate that the Nintendo Switch 2 doesn't have anything like this. But yeah, there is a lot of fun to have on the 3DS. You know, I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, and yeah, I know, lots of Pokemon games for you as well. Next up, we've got the Nintendo Switch 1. It has a massive library, a lot of fun games, and is still fully supported by Nintendo. If you don't already own one, then now is a really good time to look for a system on secondhand markets, as people are upgrading onto the next system. You know, earlier today, I went on Facebook Marketplace and I saw at least 2 listings that are less than $100. So yeah, if you really wanted to, you can get in the Nintendo ecosystem right now and for real cheap. And I think it's really good value. Plus, if you ever decide to get a Switch 2 in the future, then all the games that you buy on the Switch 1 will also be playable on the Switch 2. Maybe some games you need to upgrade in order to fully take control of the Switch 2's hardware, but that's fine, you know? You can decide in the future if you want to do that. Some games just have benefits even without, you know, paying for the upgrade. But yeah, it's a game-by-game basis, whatever. Still a very competent Nintendo system, and it will have support for at least up to next year, since, you know, we know Tomodachi Life is coming on the Switch 1 next year, 2026. So why not get a Switch 1? Legend ZA is also coming on the Switch 1, just another reminder. So certainly the console is not dead, and you can get into it really easily. And lastly, the Steam Deck. Like I said, it's not as powerful as a Switch 2, but certainly it can still run a lot of games. I think the Steam Deck's biggest leverage, apart from, being cheaper than the Switch 2, is that you don't even really need to buy games for it. If you already own a PC and you are already a PC gamer, my Steam library is already massive. I've got hundreds of games on it, ready to go. And most of these games I bought on cheap because, Steam always goes on sale. And so, yeah, this is really, I think, the best value proposition out of everything that I'm going to say here. Because, if in the future you decide that you just want to play games on PC, then if you already bought games on the Steam Deck, then they're also on your PC. They're the same thing. The Steam Deck is a PC, just small and portable. The Steam Deck is not as powerful as the Switch 2, but it's certainly more powerful than the Switch 1. And yeah, just like the Nintendo 3DS, if emulation is something that you're willing to open your heart to, then you will have access to even more games. I'm once again highlighting that the Steam Deck is more powerful than the Switch 1. And there we have it, 3 alternatives for the Nintendo Switch 2. Also, this is kind of beside the point, but I also kind of feel like Nintendo is low-key, high-key, one of the most anti-consumer gaming companies out there at the moment. Nintendo likes to shut down fan projects, even when they're not video game related, I low-key fear having my Nintendo Rivals series on my channel because I know that Nintendo, willy-nilly, if they really wanted to, they could strike down my channel just as easily. And so, I'm always approaching this with a sense of caution, but I know that ultimately there's not much I can do, and, I really appreciate Nintendo's games. I really have a lot of love for them, and it's really disappointing that they're this kind of company. They're so out of touch, and I know this isn't a new thing. Nintendo has always been out of touch, but I just feel like lately, especially with the Nintendo Switch generation, that they're just, becoming more and more aggressive with these takedowns and the things that they do. And so, I don't know. I just don't feel safe. They're cracking down on Palworld by abusing their patents for arbitrary mechanics like ball throwing because they have no leg to stand on when it comes to creatures' designs themselves because, hey, these aren't actually ripoffs. Certainly Pokemon inspired, but Donkey Kong is a King Kong ripoff. They got trouble for that in the past, so the call is coming from inside the house, Nintendo. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour being a paid tech demo, literally a tech demo. It even refers to itself like that in game, when previously Wii Sports was available for free and was an actual game. And compared to what other video game companies are doing, like Sony with Astro's Playroom, which just came with the PS5, and it's an actual game, not a tech demo, I just think, wow, what a disservice. What the fuck? Actually. Removing original staff credits from remakes like Metroid Prime, not crediting the original people who worked on the game. I have to agree with all the points that I've made in this video. My goal is not to convince you to buy a Switch 2, because the Switch 2 is a good product. I know that, and it's powerful, and it has good games. Well, it will eventually have good games. Well, we don't know that, and I want one. I just can't afford it. I'm not out here saying that Nintendo specifically is an evil company, because the truth is, all of them are. All profit-based companies are trying to get your wallet, and that's just kind of it, Some companies are more evil than others, but come on, all of them are. I just don't like that Nintendo specifically set the precedent for $80 games. They can say that they're not a market leader all they want, but, Xbox has already followed suit with one of their upcoming games, The Outer Worlds 2, which will be $80. Fuck me, dude. What the fuck? It seems like we're trending that way and there's not much I can do about it. So this is my way of hey, hands off. I don't agree. Even though I'm just one person amongst the millions of people who have already bought a Switch 2. 3 million already in its first week. Jesus Christ. Something has to give here. I don't know. Come on. Maybe I'd be more sympathetic of $80 games if the money actually went to the people developing these games. But it seems like frequently we get news about another company laying off its staff, hundreds of people at a time. And this is regardless of whether or not the games are successful. And so it just seems to me like we are raising the prices of these games, but the quality is not improving, nor is the money going to the developers or artists or other people who are working on these games. It feels like the executives are gobbling up too much money. Anyways, I'm not here to stand on a soapbox and go on about Nintendo's shady business practices. I think there are other channels out there that do a better job than me. I'm not trying to be sensationalist or anything, but yeah, there are plenty of channels that have already done that more eloquently than I, and so I'm going to link you to one of my favorite videos on this topic, which is a video from the background NPC, which should be a card somewhere here. So yeah, go check that out. I think that her video mirrors a lot of what I feel about Nintendo, a lot of conflicting feelings, because, you know, I have a lot of memories with the company and it's really, really frustrating. But yeah, it just seems like Nintendo these days is run by suits rather than creatives, and you can just feel it. And I don't know. So yeah, that's why I haven't bought a Nintendo Switch 2. I definitely will in the future, but probably not for the next couple months. Probably I'll wait until next year, unless I can, you know, find someone selling a secondhand system for a good price. I do like the system in theory. It's a lot more powerful, and the mouse mode looks really exciting, but I just can't. It's expensive. The games are expensive. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening to my rant. And my next video will be next weekend. Nintendo Hero Shooter will return for another video, and I'm really excited about that one. Stay tuned, and I will see you on the next one. Ciao.